All right, well today is oil change day for some of the cars, and so we're going to do 5 of them today. We're going to do the 2 BMWs, the M6 650i, we'll do the Fiero and the little Nissan Frontier, and then also the Escalade, because they're all coming up pretty due. So there's the Fiero, hiding out behind it is the Frontier, and then my wife's in the shade there is her 650i. We got the Escalade in the front yard because we had to make room in the bay. And then the M6 is hiding behind the Frontier back there. So we're going to get all these in one by one and we're going to get them changed out. But the video is not so much about how to change the oil in each one of them. It's more of about how the oil changes are pretty consistent across all the different types of cars and all the different makes and models. The only thing that might be different is for the old ones like the Fiero. It doesn't have a oil service interval reset, whereas some of the new cars you have to reset the interval. So we'll get set up here and bring them in one by one and show that changing the oil is not so hard and it's pretty consistent. You just got to find the place to drain it. You got to take the filter off, put a new filter on, and fill her back up. So let's get set up here and get started on some oil changes. All right, so let's get started with the Fiero, and then we'll work our way up to the BMWs. The last one I'll do is my BMW because it's a little special and you got to take some care on measuring the oil. But all these first ones are going to be pretty simple. All right, so for the Fiero, it's a mid-80s, and so it's got just the basic oil filter and it's got an oil drain plug. So if you're looking for your drain plugs as you're learning how to change some oil, always look for the lowest spot of the oil pan. That's the big thing right up underneath the motor. It'll either be this orientation or it'll be on the side somewhere right at the bottom. So right here is the drain plug, and then right up there where I'm pointing up is the oil filter. So all we got to do is spin that guy off and drain that out, and then we'll just put the new one back on and fill her back up. So super simple on the Fiero. So let's get started. We'll drain the oil out, pull the filter out, and then we'll be done with this. Alright, so after the majority of the oil is drained out, we got to put our little plug back in, and if you get a crush washer that comes with your filter, then you can use a new crush washer. If not, I reuse them quite often. So let's put that back up in there. Alright, so after the oil is all drained out and we put the plug back in, now we just want to reach up in there with a strap wrench. And we want to grab a hold of the end of the filter, and then you just want to turn it. And get it moving. So once you got it freed up, this is where the oil is going to come out, so you got to put your catch pan under there. So it makes a little bit of mess, drips down on everything, but that's okay. Alright, so to put the new filter on, you just want to get a little bit of oil dripping off of whatever or down inside your pan there, and you want to put some oil on the gasket so it won't get stuck on there. And then all we got to do is wipe off the surface where the filter goes. Just make sure there's no contaminants up there that fell down and might get in the way of our gasket, and we just screw the new one back up under. And let it make gasket contact, and then we're just going to give it a quarter turn, snug it up, half turn, whatever you like. with our little scrap wrench. There's about a half turn, just enough to keep it from rattling off, but not so tight that you can't get it off there again. So all right, so we're done on the bottom. All we got to do is just wipe off all this oil that dripped down, and we're ready to fill her up and take this one on off the lift. All right, it's back down on the ground. When it comes to the motors, the different motors, you just got to look for the cap on it that has engine oil. So right there, you can see it says engine oil fill. I'll zoom down in there on it. So right there, that's where we put our oil back in. So most every car is going to have a little cap like that that says engine oil, might say whatever's preferred or something, use SAE, whatever. But there'll be a cap on it. And then also, most cars also have a dipstick. And so right back here is the dipstick. They look like that. And some of them have little knobs, some of them have these little pull handles. And so you just got to find the dipstick. There'll be another dipstick if you have an automatic transmission, but it won't be going into the motor. It's going to be going into the transmission. This is a stick shift, so it doesn't have one. So all we got to do to fill her back up is pop our little cap off and then get us a funnel, and we're going to put some oil back in. So I don't know how much it holds, but since I got a dipstick, I'm going to put about 4 quarts in there, and then I'm going to check it. So let's start by putting some oil in there. Alright, so there's about 4 quarts. I got about that much left. So I'm going to check it real quick and just make sure, because it's better to be a little low than it is to be high, because when the motor, the piston's pushed down, it doesn't have anywhere to go if there's too much oil in it, and it's just going to blow the oil out everywhere. So let's get our dipstick out and see if we're on the dipstick yet. So we just wipe him off, and then we put him back in the dipstick hole. And then we take him out and check it. So we can see we are, if we rotate it around, we're right about here. And so we're almost to full. They usually have like an add and a full. So we're getting pretty close to full right there with 4 quarts. So that's going to be enough that if I'm up in the middle here, I can start it up. It'll fill up that filter, and then I can top it off, and then we'll be in good shape. So at 4 quarts for this one, we're in good shape to start it up. And then we'll top it off once we get the oil filter filled up with oil. Alright, so let's put the cap back on and fire it up, and then we'll check it one more time and give it a little bit extra. Alright, so just 10 or 15 seconds or so, that's enough for us to run the oil through there and fill up that filter. So now, let's pull our dipstick out and we'll check it and do the final top off. We are right up here. It's where, not where all the oil is, but where it becomes a solid drop. And so we're right on full. So alright, so the Fiero's done. So we will back her out of here, and next up, we'll bring the Frontier in. Alright, so the Frontier setup just a little different than the Fiero, but still nothing crazy. They still got the drain plug at the bottom, very bottom of the oil pan. But if you look around for the filter, it's not on the side of the motor, it's actually a remote mount. And so it's sitting up behind this rock shield right here. And you can take it loose, you can reach up under the rock shield and take the filter off, and the oil's going to come down and pour out of this little siphon right here. But we don't want to do that, because then it's just going to keep dripping and dripping as it comes off the rock shield till it finally all drips away. So For this one, I usually just take the rock shield off, and then we'll see the filter up inside of there, because it just takes a second to take the rock shield down. And there we go. So with the rock shield took down, you can see right over there is the little bitty filter. So you could have took it off from the back side and it would have poured out on that rock shield. But we don't want to do that if we don't have to. We can take it off right here, and it's real easy to access. So here again, all we do is go through the steps. First, we're going to drain the oil out of the oil pan, and then we're going to take the filter off and swap it out. So let's get our little filter pan over here and get that bolt broke loose. Alright, so after the majority of our oil has drained out, in goes the drain plug. Tighten him back up. And now we just got to scoot over here and do the filter. Works the same way. Then we just wipe off the surface again just to make sure there's no contaminants that might catch our gasket. And then we just grab our new filter and get a little bit of oil that's dripping off on our fingers and lube up that gasket. Makes it easier to get them off. Like that. And we put the little guy back on there. And this is a tiny little filter, so it's important to change your oil. This one actually has grips on it, so you can grip it, tighten it down. So you don't have to use the strap wrench on him. You can just give him a grip with his little grip thing. So put it down as tight as you can get it by hand there, so it won't back up. The gasket's going to swell up anyway once it gets hot, and that oil gets on it, so it'll tighten that gasket down. So we're almost done with the bottom. Got all of our oil changed out, so now we just got to put our rock shield back on, and we're ready to fill it up and top it off. And there we go. So let's get him lowered back down and give him a fill up. Alright, so to fill up the Frontier, it has the little dipstick right there that we'll pull out and we'll check once we put about 4 quarts in it. And then right over here on this side is actually the filler. And you can see it's got the little symbol on it for oil. It's kind of like a little genie's bottle with a drip of something coming out of it. I don't know why they don't put like a picture of a little quart bottle or something, because nobody uses a little oil fill like that anymore. But there she is, and that's what it looks like. And for the dipstick, since this is an automatic, this is a 2000 Frontier, and it is an automatic transmission. So we have the dipstick to check the oil right here. It goes down into the motor. So don't get confused, because there's another one in the back here. This little dipstick right over here, that dipstick is for the automatic transmission. And so he's not yellow, and he's not very easy to spot, mainly because you don't do as much with it as you do with oil changes. But that's your transmission, and it goes toward the back. This is the oil, and it goes down into the motor. So we're not worried about our transmission right now. We just need to pop him back down in it. So there we go. So that's back in place. So now all we got to do is take the cap off, and we'll put about 4 quarts in there again, and then we'll check it and see what our level looks like. And I'll show you what it looks like, because sometimes it's hard to read with these funny looking little ends on them. So let me zoom down in here so when I get in front of the camera you can see it. And we can see that one side of it doesn't look like it has oil on it. This side looks full. This side doesn't look like it has oil on it, and that side is still missing oil too. And so we are in pretty good shape. Well, all right, now we'll back this one out and get ready to put the Escalade in. Alright, so for the Escalade, it's starting to look the same as the other ones. If you've noticed, there's a drain plug right here on the bottom end. This is the transmission, and then this is the end of the oil pan. So there's a drain plug right there for the oil, and then there's the filter sitting right beside it. So it's pointed up this way, which doesn't make much difference. We're still going to take it off. So same thing again. All we do is break this drain plug loose. So this filter has the gripper, but I can't really grip it in this vehicle. I can't get my fingers on it good. So I'm just going to use my little tightening guy and put him up on there and just tighten it up a little bit with it. And there we go. Just snug enough, not so tight that you can't get it off, but not loose as it'll vibrate itself off. About a half turn past contact's what I usually do. So now we are ready to drop this one back down and fill it up. Alright, so for the Escalade, you can see after a couple of oil changes, we're starting to see some consistency. So right here is the one to check the oil, the dipstick. And back here is the one that's for the transmission. So they're nice. They put a little gear on it to kind of show you the transmission. So the oil one is usually the most prominent. They make it yellow, or they do like that, except for the Fiero. It was just kind of whatever it was. And then right here is the oil fill. And so when you take your little cap off, this one just kind of twists around and pops off there. You got to twist it just right to get it to pop. And then it'll come off like that. And you can see that it's got the little genie bottle that looks like it's supposed to be oil from some ancient time ago. It actually tells you what oil to use on this one. Although it says 530, I'm going to use 1030 because this motor's got pushing 200,000 miles, so at this point it don't care. You're going to put 1030, 1040, whatever you want to in there. But that's the thing to note, is that that little symbol is pretty consistent across the vehicles. It's a little oil fill thing from ancient times ago. So we just got to get us some oil.
With the cold hard hatred, I can feel the vibration. Feet in the streets, it's a new sensation. I wanna break faces on the.
So this type dipstick is a little easier to read because it's got the holes in it, and you can see where the oil comes up. So I can see right there my oil level is about right there. So I'm right past the full, just a little bit. So that's pretty good because I got to start it up and fill up my filter, and then I'll check it again and see if we need to top off any. Alright, so after firing it up for a second, let's check our oil one more time and just see if we need to add any. We'll wipe her off and put her back. And we can see that we sucked quite a bit in, because right there, only half of it has oil on it. So right about there is where the oil is. So I still need to add about a half a quart, and I'll be right up in there, because those lines should equal about a quart for most cars. So let's put that back in, take this guy off, and we'll add about a half quart more. And we should be in good shape on the Escalade. So there we go. So now the Escalade's done. And this is the last of the ones that have a spin-on filter that we're doing. The other two, the BMWs, have a cartridge filter. But you can see the things are about the same. We just got to look for the little oil fill bottle, look for the most prominent dipstick, and you'll see it's different on a BMW. It doesn't have the pull knob, it's gonna have a little knob. Mine doesn't even have one at all. So we'll do it last, and then I'll show you how to do the M6 with no dipstick. We'll back the Escalade out, and we'll bring in a 650i, and we'll show the differences in that, because it's a little bit different, but the process is virtually the same. All right, so we finished up the oil change on the 2008 Escalade, and this one, along with the BMWs that we're going to do here next as we go in line, this one requires you to reset the oil service. So what we need to do is click the key on, and then what we got to do is use the little buttons on the side over here, go to the one with the car and the exclamation, and then I'm going to poke it until I get to oil service. So it says 48% oil life remaining, and so I just poke that until I got it. Now what I want to do is move down to the little check box, and I want to hold that until it resets the service. So I'm just going to hold down on that little button, and we're going to hold it until it goes back to 100%. And so there we go. So we just reset our oil service. So now we can turn the key back off, and we got everything filled up. So we'll fire it up, and we'll back it out of here and get ready to do a BMW. Alright, so for the BMWs, this is a 650i. They like to hide stuff on BMWs. And so the whole bottom of this car is protected with a rock shield, and then also they got a little bitty shield right here. So up inside of this little hole, and you'll see it's virtually the same as the other cars, except for BMW uses cartridge filters. There's going to be a oil filter down here, and there's going to be a drain plug. And we just have to take out the drain plug and take out the oil filter. So right here, if you could see up inside of this, this is the bottom of the oil pan, and there's the drain plug. And then right here is the filter, sits inside of this little housing right there. So instead of a spin on, I'm actually going to spin that housing off and replace the cartridge inside. So just like before, all we got to get is the tools. So this is a 6mm, and we're going to drain the center out if we can get it off. If not, we'll just have to take the whole thing out. But first, we got to take the oil out. So let's get us the right size for that, and then we can get our oil out of there. Alright, so with the majority of the oil drained out, it's still running a little bit, but it's not much. Probably going to be less than a quarter quart left in there if I let it drain for hours, because it'll come back down to the motor. So we got to put our little seal ring on, and sometimes they come with the new filter. If you didn't get one, you can reuse that one a couple times and it'll still seal off. So now we got to switch over and do the filter. So we got to drain the little filter out in the center there. So that's where we switch over to a hex, 6mm hex, and we're going to try to break that free. Sometimes they don't come free and you got to take the whole housing out. It's a little messier. Sometimes these little guys will pop out of there. So I got lucky that my little drain fitting popped out of there. So now I can take that out and drain the housing, and then I can remove the housing. So while that's draining out, the filter comes with a new crush washer for the drain plug that I didn't replace, so I got me a spare now. It also has an O-ring that's for that little fitting that I just took off, so let's go ahead and change that O-ring out. So we take our little O-ring off out of the groove, and then we put our new O-ring that came with the kit on. Right there. Then we just got to get it down in that groove right there, so we just raise it up over the lip and pop it on there. There we go. So with the majority of that drained out, we can put this little guy back in there, and then we'll dump the rest out once we take the housing off. So let's stick him back up in there, tighten him back up, then we'll be ready to pull the housing off. Alright, so to get to the cartridge filter, it's hiding up inside the housing, and you'll see on this one it's a little different than even my other BMW. Mine's going to be a remote mount. This one's attached to the motor, but either way it goes, we just got to get that little housing off, and then the filter's going to be inside. So get us a 24 millimeter, and we break him free. And there we go. So there's the housing, and it still has some oil in it. We didn't drain it all out, but we can take it out of there. Now you just got to watch the orientation. You can see this one's open. The other end's going to have a little clip on it. So we got to pop that loose. I'll show it to you in a second. And so right here you can see the filter comes out, and it's just a little cartridge filter. And then this is the housing that it goes into. So we get all the roll out. We got another O-ring right here. Just squeeze it with your fingers and you can pop it off. And we're going to replace that O-ring with the O-ring that came in the kit. So we give it its new O-ring. There's enough oil on it so you don't even have to lubricate it. And just slide it on there. Get it down in the groove. Right there. And take our new filter, and it's got little fingers on it that pop into the housing. And so you just put them in there and push, and it pops right in there for you. So now all we got to do is wipe down that surface up there, and we're ready to reinstall. So same deal. Just wipe the surface off. Make sure there's nothing underneath there. And then for this one, we want to get a little bit of oil dripping off, or some oil off the other filter. And we want to lube right inside of there. And then we want to lube the O-ring. And then we just put it back up on there. Now we just have to put our little cover back on. We've got a drain plug in. So now we just cover it back up. And even for a BMW, it's pretty simple to change your oil. All you got to do is drain it out and find where the filter is. And there we go. So now we're ready to go up top and fill her up, and we'll be done with number 4. Alright, so for the 6 Series, it's very similar to the other ones. You're starting to see a similarity in all this. The filter might be different, might be in a different location, might be remote, but all you got to do is find the filter, and the drain is always on the bottom of the oil pan. So now we go to the top, and right here you'll see is the cap for the oil. Get it off there. And on the little cap, if you can see it in the light there, you'll see the same little symbol. The little oil can, looks like a genie. And we got that, and then because BMW likes to hide stuff, they got the dipstick way back here. So here's the dipstick. Now mine, we'll do it last. Mine doesn't actually have a dipstick. They didn't put it on it. So what I got to do is measure how much I take out and put that amount in, and then let the electronics of the car tell me whether or not I need to top it off or whatever I need to do. So, same deal for this one. All we got to do is take her cap off, and we're going to fill her up with about 5 quarts. Put us a couple quarts in and get her up to about 4 or 5, and then we'll check it. And this one's got a little funny end on it, so little cooler. This one's even easier to read than the Fiero, definitely easier than the Nissans. We'll be able to see our oil level real easy in the BMW. And we pull her out and we can see we are just barely on the tip. So we know we need another quart to get up in to the full area. Now we can put our cap back on. We'll fire it up and check it one more time just to make sure. And we should be in good shape on the 650. And there we go. So with the 6 done, now we can pull the M6 in and we can give it a change. And like I say, it's a little bit different, but it's all about the same. You just got to find the filter, got to find the drain, but then I'm going to have to measure my oil because I don't have a dipstick. So we'll get this one out of here and get the last one in for today, and we will be done with our oil changes. Alright, so last on the list for today's oil changes is the M. And it's a little more difficult because I don't have a dipstick on this car, but the oil change is the same. There's my drain plug, and usually you can find it. For some of the later ones, they actually put another drain plug up front. So they got 2 in the oil pan. I only got 1 on mine because it's an 07 M6. But to find the filter, and kind of like the Frontier, it was a remote mount. This one's a remote mount filter as well. But it's hiding up underneath my rock shield. So I got to take the rock shield off in order to get to the filter, but I can drain the oil right there. So I'll start draining the oil, and while it's draining out, I'll take the rock shield off. Alright, so that exposes a lot more stuff. So right hiding over here in the corner is my little filter. So as soon as that oil gets done draining, I'll scoot the camera over here and we'll show the same. But it's just a remote mount, so it's kind of like the 650i, only it's sitting over here instead of stuck to the motor. So we'll get over here in just a minute as soon as that oil drains out, and we'll show how to take this filter off. Alright, so to get the oil off the filter, all we got to do is virtually the same as the 650i. We got to get that little drain loose out of the housing there, and then we'll drain the oil out of the filter housing.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yo, go, go, go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day.
Alright, so with our new O-ring on our housing, and we got our new filter, this one's kind of backwards to the 650 in that the post up in the middle is really tight, and so what you got to do is actually put the filter up into the housing, and then it goes on real easy on this end. But the one up in the housing is really tough, so what we got to do is push it up on there, and then we'll put the housing on over the filter. So that guy goes up into it first, and then this guy will go up on there real easy. So we just push him up on there and start tightening things back up.
Moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit my way.
Alright, so for the M6, since it doesn't have a dipstick, what I gotta do is measure how much oil I took out so I can put that same amount back in there, and then I'll be pretty safe, and then the car can tell me if it needs a little bit more. So I got an old jug off of one of the other cars where I was doing the oil change. And what I'm going to do is fill that up and check the liters. And so I marked on the side of it right there, 1 liter, 2 liter, 3 liter, 4 liter. So we're going to fill it up to 4 liters and then dump it over into something else. And then we can see how many liters we took out. So we got a total of 8 liters that we took out. Now the book says the car holds 10, but because I don't have 2 drain plugs, there's 2 liters still inside that motor. So if I was to just go by the book and put 10 liters in there, I would be 2 liters too much. And so I got to put 8 liters back in because that's what I took out. And then that'll be plus or minus enough that I'm close on my oil level, and then the car can tell me if I need to add a little bit more. But if I put 10 liters in there, I'd be 2 liters over and it'll start screaming that it's got too much oil in it. So I got 1 liter, 2 liter, 3 liters plus the other jug's gonna be 8 liters. So I just gotta stop right there. I'll have 8 liters back in it and we'll be in good shape. So here again, I don't have a dipstick on this one, but I got the oil fill cap, and guess what? It's got the same little genie looking oil bottle there. And so all we gotta do is put the oil in there and away we'll go. So let's get some oil put in. So since I don't have a dipstick, that's all I can do is just put the same amount of oil in there as I took out. And now all we gotta do is put our cap back on and we'll fire this one up and take it on out of here. We gotta do the oil service reset on it, but then we're done because there's really no checking of anything after you fill it up. We don't have to worry about it filling up the filter or anything like that. We're good to go. So let's hop in here and do our oil service reset and we'll be finished up for the day. All right, well, the lift bay is empty again. We got 5 oil changes done today, and as you can see, from an 85 Fiero all the way up to the more modern cars, not that much difference. All you gotta do is find the drain plug that's on the oil pan and find the filter. Sometimes they're remote, sometimes they're attached to the motor. And then for the newer cars, you got to do the oil service interval reset. But that's about it. Well, alrighty. Well, thanks for watching.